In the Days of These Kings, the Book of Daniel in Preterist Perspective by J. Rogers. Audiobook Part 10. Introduction. Evidence from pre-Maccabean writings. Evidence from pre-Maccabean writings. There is evidence that Daniel was known prior to the time of Antiochus Epiphanes, as far back as the Persian period. As I argue in Old Testament references and allusions to Daniel, Zechariah, the structure and symbolism of Zechariah forms a bridge between Daniel and Revelation. There is also a direct quote shared between Daniel 9 and Nehemiah 1, in which the language of an intercessory prayer is quoted exactly. I deal with this in Old Testament references and allusions to Daniel, Nehemiah. Daniel is alluded to extensively in the Book of Baruch, which is thought by some conservative Roman Catholic scholars to be a work compiled during the Persian period prior to 330 BC, although some liberals date it to the post-Maccabean period precisely because the text follows Daniel. My estimated date for the Book of Baruch is the early Hellenistic period, circa 300 to 200 BC. First Maccabees chapters 1 and 2 are also reliant on Daniel, especially First Maccabees 2, 59-60. The likelihood of Daniel being influenced by Baruch and First Maccabees, rather than the other way around, is slim. Daniel was quoted as scripture in commentaries found at Qumran and in the New Testament, while the Jews never accepted Baruch and Maccabees as canonical. This indicates a period of acceptance of Daniel prior to the composition of these dependent works. In this section, Old Testament references and allusions to Daniel, Book of Baruch, and Judas Maccabeus. I argue that while the apocryphal books of Baruch, 1st and 2nd Maccabees, were written in Hebrew or Aramaic, the only surviving copies from early on were in Greek. Since these books lacked a Hebrew pedigree, the Jews have never considered them to be canonical. However, Daniel has an early attestation in the Hebrew canon. Further, since both books share common material with Daniel, it is putting the cart before the horse to say Daniel followed the Apocrypha. It should be obvious that the Apocrypha were influenced by Daniel. We find Daniel's influence on 1st and 2nd Enoch of about that same era. There is a strong Daniel influence on 1st Enoch 83 to 90. In Daniel 4, 13, 17, 23, there are references to a watcher and a holy one. Watcher, Aramaic ear, Holy One, Aramaic Kaddish, a class of angels that is further developed in the Aramaic books of 1st and 2nd Enoch. We also find Daniel referenced and alluded to in the Sibylline oracles. For example, the imagery of one root being cut from 10 horns is a reference to Daniel 7, 8, 20, 24. Producing one root, which the bane of men shall cut from 10 horns, and plant by their side another plant. Sibylline Oracles 3, 93 to 95.